A metal door clicked shut behind him, sealing the room in a kind of stillness that didn't belong in a prison. The overhead bulb hummed. Dust drifted through a narrow beam of pale yellow light. And at a steel table in the center of that cramped interview room, a guard named Daniel Reyes sat alone, rubbing his hands together, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. He thought he was waiting for a routine inmate check-in. A few questions, a few signatures, then he'd head back to the main block. Nothing unusual. But when the door opened again, the man who walked in wasn't assigned to him. He wasn't even supposed to be on this side of the building. It was Leon Hale, a man inmates whispered about, a man whose name never drifted through the air without someone lowering their voice. He was older, mid-50s, with short gray hair and a stare sharp enough to cut through steel. But today, he wasn't looking dangerous. He was calm, too calm. Leon stepped forward, placed a small duffel on the table, and unzipped it slowly, like he wanted Daniel to hear every tooth of the zipper. Stacks of money sat inside. Thick stacks, unmistakable. He didn't threaten him. He didn't shout. He didn't bargain. He just pushed the bag across the table with 2 fingers and said, almost gently, 5 minutes. That's all I need. Daniel froze. His throat tightened. He couldn't even look at the money. He could only look at Leon's face and the strange, unsettling calm in his eyes. 5 minutes, $50,000. One favor. What happened after that nearly tore the entire prison apart. If you want the real and censored story behind the headlines, you need to subscribe to Adophile. The full and censored story is only possible because you're subscribed. Before we dive into this wild case, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think the guard was planning to take the bribe from the start, or was he trapped? Drop your answer in the comments as we go through this story. People usually imagine prisons as places ruled by violence, noise, and chaos. But the real danger, the kind that grows unnoticed, starts in silence. And silence was exactly what wrapped itself around Red Ridge Correctional Facility. A place known less for brutality and more for the things that were never officially written down. Red Ridge wasn't the worst prison in the state, but everyone knew things moved differently there. Deals were made quietly. Favors carried more weight than policies. And if an inmate managed to get something they shouldn't have, a phone, a schedule, a key, nobody ever asked where it came from. It was a place full of small cracks. Cracks nobody cared about. Cracks that wouldn't matter until someone pushed too hard. And that someone was Leon Hale. Daniel Reyes wasn't a standout guard. He wasn't the type officers rallied around or feared. He didn't bark orders or get drunk on authority. He did his job, did it quietly, then went home to a tiny apartment and a fridge where the light sometimes flickered. He'd been working at Red Ridge for 8 years. 8 years of double shifts, broken relationships, missed holidays, and promises to himself he never kept. He wasn't corrupt. He wasn't heroic. He was tired, and that's what made him vulnerable. What many people didn't know was that Daniel's life outside the prison was slowly coming apart. His mother, the woman who raised him alone, had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia 2 years earlier. The medications were expensive. The home care was worse. Insurance helped, but not enough. He'd sold his car, then his small collection of tools, and finally dipped into the savings he'd been building since high school. By the time Leon Hale walked into that room with the duffel bag, Daniel was 2 months behind on rent and 3 months behind on care payments. And Leon had done his homework. Most inmates survive on instinct. Leon survived on strategy. He wasn't big, he wasn't loud, and he didn't run with a gang. But everyone knew he had influence, the kind you couldn't see unless you knew where to look. Years earlier, he'd run a logistics company that later turned out to be a front for illegal distribution. When the feds closed in, he took a plea deal, but the people he worked with never fully disappeared. Even behind bars, Leon's network remained intact. He knew which guards were short-tempered, which inmates owed him favors, and which cracks in the system he could widen with just the right pressure. And when he found out about Daniel's private struggles, through whispers, rumors, and a few strategically placed questions, he knew exactly where to strike. That night in the interview room wasn't scheduled. It wasn't approved. It shouldn't have existed on any logbook. Leon made it happen. He slipped a request through another inmate, who slipped it to a guard he already owned, who slipped it into the daily rotation. By the time Daniel walked in, everything had already been set in motion. And that meant one thing: Leon wasn't offering a bribe. He was offering a test. When the bag hit the table, Daniel's first instinct was to stand up and call for backup. But his hands shook. He didn't reach for his radio. He didn't reach for the door. He didn't even breathe right. Leon leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You look like a man carrying a lot. I'm not asking for trouble. I'm offering relief." His tone made Daniel's skin crawl. Not because it was threatening, it wasn't, but because it sounded like he already knew everything. "Just 5 minutes," Leon repeated. "In the storage room behind Block D. No cameras, no questions. You walk me in, you walk me out. That's it." Daniel stared at the money. It seemed unreal, like someone had printed it for a movie set. "Why me?" he finally whispered. Leon smiled. "Because you're at the point where saying no hurts more than saying yes." The room stayed quiet, the kind of quiet that makes a person aware of their own heartbeat. Red Ridge was old, built in the 70s, renovated only where it mattered for public reports. Security cameras were outdated. Blind spots existed in almost every wing. Staff was overworked and underpaid. Everyone had secrets. Some guards smuggled phones. Some inmates had access to areas they shouldn't. Some officers looked the other way to keep the peace. But none of those secrets were dangerous enough to bring down the prison. Not yet. Daniel didn't know it, but Leon had spent months charting those blind spots. He knew which cameras glitched at night, which hallways never got patrolled during shift changes, which rooms hadn't been checked in years. Red Ridge's weaknesses weren't coincidences. They were opportunities. In the days leading up to the bribe, Daniel had been drowning. His mother had wandered out of her care home twice. The staff called him in the middle of the night, apologizing, telling him they were doing their best. His boss rejected his request for overtime. His landlord left another notice under his door. He wasn't eating much, sleeping much, or thinking clearly. When Leon pushed the 50,000 forward, Daniel didn't see a crime. He saw breathing room. He saw 3 months of rent. He saw medication his mother couldn't afford. He saw the chance to stop everything from collapsing. That's how it begins for most people who fall. Not with greed, but with exhaustion. Daniel didn't take the money. He didn't touch it, but he didn't report it either. He walked out of the room, trembling, sweating. His brain locked in the strange space between morality and desperation. He told himself he needed time. He told himself he'd make the right choice later. He told himself the meeting hadn't even happened. But in prison, silence is a decision. By the next morning, the damage was already done. Leon knew Daniel didn't report him, and that meant Daniel had just become part of something he never meant to join. Leon watched Daniel closely over the next week. He didn't push, didn't approach him again, didn't force anything. He simply let the pressure work. Inmates whispered, guards argued. Something shifted in the air around Block D. People could smell tension, even if they didn't know who it belonged to. But Leon knew. Every time Daniel hesitated at his post, Leon noticed. Every time Daniel rubbed his forehead, Leon noticed. Every time Daniel stood near the storage room, even accidentally, Leon noticed. Daniel wasn't involved yet, but he was leaning, and sometimes leaning is all it takes to fall. The prison's rhythm faltered. A few routine checks started running late. A guard called in sick. An inmate known for silence started talking too confidently. Small signs. Signs nobody but Leon understood. He had already set the stage. He just needed Daniel to play his part. Then, one night, Daniel found a folded piece of paper in his locker. Thursday, midnight, storage room, 5 minutes. No one will know. A chill ran through his body. His first instinct was to crumple the note and throw it away. His second instinct was to walk straight to his supervisor's office and confess everything. But he didn't do either. He just stood there, staring at the words, feeling his life narrowing into a funnel he couldn't escape. Thursday came faster than Daniel expected. All day he felt sick. His palms were damp, his head was heavy, and his chest tightened every time he checked the clock. He tried to distract himself with work, but his mind wandered back to the storage room, to the blind spot only a few guards knew about, to the money he hadn't touched but couldn't forget. At 11:45 p.m., he was still at his post. At 11:55, his legs felt numb. At 11:58, he walked toward Block D. He told himself he wasn't agreeing to anything. He told himself he just wanted to confront Leon. He told himself he wanted this over with. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't walking away. He was walking in. Daniel reached the dark hallway behind Block D. The light above the storage room flickered, casting long shadows across the peeling paint. His hand hovered over the door handle. His heart pounded so loudly he could feel it in his throat. This was the moment everything began to spiral. What do you think really drove him? Greed, fear, or desperation? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to Adophile for more real stories behind the headlines. The moment Daniel unlocked that storage room, something shifted inside him. He didn't say yes to Leon's offer, and he didn't take the money, not yet. But silence was as dangerous as agreement, and everyone inside Red Ridge knew that the line between just doing your job and helping an inmate was thin enough to snap without warning. For the first few days, he tried convincing himself nothing had changed. He came to work, scanned his badge, walked the tiers, and kept his face blank. But the prison felt different now. The hallways seemed tighter. The inmates stared longer. Even his fellow officers sensed something on him, like heat coming off metal. And Leon? He watched from the sidelines with the patience of a hunter. 3 days after the storage room incident, Daniel opened his locker to find a small folded note. No name, no signature, just 4 words. His stomach dropped. He didn't report it. He didn't throw it away. He just stared at it until his break ended. By 11 p.m., he was pacing outside the room, palms sweating, heart hammering against his ribs. He didn't want to go in. He didn't want to walk away either. Both choices felt like traps. When he finally unlocked the door, Leon wasn't alone. 2 other inmates waited inside, moving fast, shifting boxes, pulling out tools, and passing wrapped bundles that Daniel couldn't fully see. They didn't speak to him. They didn't look at him. They treated him like part of the furniture, a piece of the machine they were building. 5 minutes, Leon said again, his voice calm, almost comforting. You're doing well. Daniel walked out, locking the door behind him, but something felt wrong. He had a gut feeling, the kind that gnaws at the edges of your confidence. This wasn't about contraband. This wasn't about money. Something bigger was moving through the cracks of the prison. Within the next week, subtle shifts in Red Ridge's routine became impossible to ignore. Packages arrived without signatures. Camera feeds glitched for seconds at a time. Assignments changed last minute. And inmates, the smart ones, suddenly knew guard rotations, inspection schedules, and blind spots that only insiders should understand. One morning, Officer Ramirez approached Daniel near the gate. You ever get the feeling someone's messing with the system? Ramirez asked. How do you mean? Daniel replied, keeping his tone flat. Ramirez shrugged but didn't hide his concern. Feels like someone's pulling strings. Things moving when they shouldn't be. Doors unlocking that were fine yesterday. Daniel swallowed hard. Probably just maintenance issues. Ramirez gave him a long look. Too long. Maintenance doesn't unlock doors. That was the first time Daniel realized he wasn't the only guard being watched. This operation was bigger than him. He wasn't helping one inmate. He was helping an entire hidden network. And they weren't just running contraband, they were reorganizing the prison from the inside. The pressure escalated quickly. One night, as Daniel escorted inmates back to their cells, he caught a glimpse of Chief Warden Hagen walking toward the security office with a USB drive in his hand. We're running a full system data scan, Hagen announced. Every camera, every lock, every log. Someone's been tampering. Daniel kept his face expressionless, but inside his mind exploded. If they checked the logs, they'd find him. If they reviewed the camera blind spots, they'd see someone moving during his shift. If they scanned for access overrides, they would know exactly which officer badge opened which door. That night, Daniel barely slept. He kept imagining a knock on his door, cuffs against his wrists, his daughter watching him fall. The next day, Leon approached him in the cafeteria. No money, no threats, just that calm voice. "You're scared," Leon said quietly. "Good. Fear keeps a man sharp." "What are you doing?" Daniel whispered back. "This wasn't the deal." "There was no deal," Leon replied. "There was opportunity." He leaned forward just enough for Daniel to hear. "And you took it." Daniel thought Leon wanted freedom, or money, or revenge on another inmate. He was wrong. Leon's real plan was control. Red Ridge wasn't a prison to him, it was a chessboard. And every guard, every inmate, every blind spot was a piece he was moving. Within weeks, he had orchestrated a network of smuggling routes, communication channels, and internal leverage so tight that even officers unknowingly supported it. But the turning point came when Daniel entered the wrong hallway at the wrong time. He heard voices behind the laundry room door, guards' voices, familiar ones, Officer Bennett, Senior Officer Adams, two men he respected. He leaned closer. "How much did he give you?" one guard whispered. 40,000, the other replied. "And he said more is coming." Daniel froze. They were in on it. And not just them, multiple guards. Leon's operation wasn't inmate-driven. It was a partnership, a corrupt circle that had been feeding for months. Daniel stepped back quietly, but the floor creaked beneath him. The voices inside stopped. "Someone's out there," one of the guards said. Daniel ran. They caught up to him near the stairwell. Adams grabbed his shoulder. "You hear something?" Adams asked. Daniel forced a steady breath. "Just patrolling. I heard voices. Didn't know it was you." Adams stared into his eyes, searching for a crack, a twitch, a lie. Finally, he let go. "Be careful where you walk. Some areas are restricted." "Right?" Daniel said before walking away. When he turned the corner, his hands were shaking so hard he had to lean on the wall. He wasn't just a witness now. He wasn't just a pawn. He was a loose end. The next morning, Chief Hagen ordered all guards into the briefing room. "We found something," he announced, projecting a screen behind him. The room went silent. On the screen was a grainy hallway recording, a blurred angle near the storage area. They couldn't see faces. They couldn't identify bodies. But they saw movement where there shouldn't have been any. "Someone used their badge to access that door multiple nights," Hagen said. "We're pulling the badge logs next." Daniel's chest tightened so hard he thought he might pass out. He was done. It was over. But then something strange happened. Leon looked perfectly calm. Too calm. And Daniel understood the terrible truth. Leon had planned for this. He wanted this. Why? The answer came that night. An anonymous envelope appeared in Daniel's locker, just like the first one. Inside was a single USB drive and a note. "If they check your badge, plug this in. Do not ask how it works." Daniel stared at the drive like it was poison, because using it meant crossing a line he could never come back from. But not using it meant losing everything: his job, his daughter, his freedom. That evening, as Chief Hagen began pulling badge records, Daniel stood outside the server room holding the USB drive. If he plugged it in, he'd be helping Leon rewrite surveillance logs, erase evidence, and manipulate the system, giving the inmate even more power. If he didn't plug it in, his badge would expose him within minutes. Two choices, both deadly. He stepped inside the server room, pulled the computer chair back, inserted the USB drive, and the screen instantly went black. One line appeared: "Access granted. System override in progress." Daniel's heart dropped, because the system wasn't just wiping logs. It was rewriting control, transferring authority, rerouting the prison's internal access. He tried to eject the drive, but the system locked him out. He tried to close the window, it froze. The prison alarms suddenly beeped. Doors clicked. Cameras glitched. A robotic voice echoed through the server room. "Administrative takeover detected." Daniel's eyes widened. Leon hadn't just built a smuggling network. He was taking the prison. and Daniel had just helped him do it. By the time the sun rose over Red Ridge the next morning, everyone inside the prison had heard the same rumor. Officer Daniel Carter had taken $50,000 to help one of the most dangerous inmates walk free. It spread through the blocks like smoke. Some whispered it with excitement, others with suspicion. The officers looked at him like he had stepped on a landmine and did not know it yet. Daniel arrived for duty barely holding himself together. He had not slept. Every hour of the night had been spent replaying the moment he slid the bribe across the desk and reported it. He had expected a formal investigation, interviews, maybe even protection. Instead, he found himself being avoided by officials and stared at by inmates who suddenly walked around with boldness. He walked into the administration building and knocked on Chief Officer Walker's door. The answer he got was short. "Not now." Daniel pushed the door open anyway. "Sir, someone is saying I took the bribe." Walker sighed like he had been waiting for this moment. "You need to calm down." "Calm down? My life is on the line." Walker leaned back and folded his arms. "I guess now you understand what happens when you overstep." Daniel blinked. "Overstep? I did what the rules say. I reported illegal money. And you should have brought it to a senior officer before touching it. You crossed a line that was not yours to cross." The room suddenly felt tighter, cold. Daniel took a slow breath. "This is not about rules," he said. "Someone is framing me." Walker's expression barely changed. "Watch your tone, Officer Daniel." There was a long silence. Daniel realized something in that moment. The investigation was not coming for Leon. It was coming for him, and Walker was not going to lift a finger. He walked out of the office with a sinking feeling. The system was already turning against him. By afternoon, Internal Affairs arrived. 2 officers escorted Daniel to a private room and asked him to sit. A digital recorder was placed on the table. The same kind of dim room where Leon had pushed the money almost a week earlier. Except this time, Daniel was on the wrong side of the table. "Officer Daniel," the lead investigator began, "we are reviewing allegations that you accepted a bribe from inmate Marcus Boyd. Is that correct?" Daniel almost laughed at the absurdity. "I reported it. I gave the money in. The story is backward. Do you have proof you rejected the bribe?" "I walked it straight to Chief Officer Walker." The investigator raised an eyebrow. "That is unfortunate." "Why?" "Because Walker said you came to him empty-handed." The room felt like it tilted. Daniel stared at them, unable to breathe for a moment. "That is a lie. Do you have video footage or any independent witness?" "There was no one else there." The investigator closed his notebook slowly, like he had already made his decision. "Officer Daniel, you were the last person in possession of that money. And right now, no one can account for what happened to it." Daniel felt a tremor in his chest. He tried to steady his voice. "I did not take that money." The investigator nodded politely. "We will continue our review." But Daniel knew what that tone meant. They were not looking for truth. They were closing a case file. As soon as he stepped back into the corridor, a junior officer pulled him aside. "They just moved Leon out of Block C." Daniel's stomach dropped. "Why?" He requested a meeting with the deputy warden. Nobody knows why, but everyone is talking about it. Daniel understood instantly. Leon was about to sell a story, and whatever he said would be more damaging than $50,000. The inmate who offered the bribe was now the star witness. Red Ridge was not a simple prison. It had pockets of power controlled by officers, others influenced by inmates, and a shadowy middle ground where deals were traded for favors. Leon sat right in the center of that middle ground. By evening, Daniel realized something terrible. Someone had been waiting for a guard like him. Someone stressed, overworked, struggling at home. Someone who could be painted as corrupt without much effort. And Leon had spotted that weakness. Daniel sat alone in the staff cafeteria long after the others had left. He remembered the first time he saw Leon months ago. The man had looked at him with an expression that felt too knowing. "You think you're safe just because you follow the rules," Leon had said during that first encounter. "But rules bend faster than men." Now Daniel saw the truth behind those words. Leon had not targeted him because he wanted freedom. He targeted him because someone else inside the prison needed a fall guy. And Daniel was convenient. The next day, Daniel was suspended pending investigation. His badge and keys were taken. His access to the prison system was revoked. It happened so quickly that he barely heard the words the deputy warden recited. When he stepped outside the gates, he expected to feel relief at leaving the place behind. He felt nothing. The prison felt like it was still holding him by the throat. That night, he received a message on his phone. An unknown number. It was a photo, a stack of cash, $50,000, neatly arranged, fresh. Below it, a message. "You took it. Play your role." Daniel stared at the image for almost a minute before realizing what it meant. They still had the money. Whoever had framed him had taken the cash and stored it away as leverage. And now they wanted him to accept the story. The bribe was never about freeing Leon. It was about creating a narrative that protected the people who controlled real power inside Red Ridge. And the moment Daniel reported the bribe, he had walked right into the trap. The investigation wrapped up in less than a week. Daniel was called back to the administrative building. He sat in front of a small panel of officials who barely looked at him. The verdict was read with the calmness of a routine meeting. "Officer Daniel Carter, you are hereby dismissed from duty, effective immediately. Your actions compromised the security of Red Ridge Correctional Facility." He wanted to argue, to shout, to call out Walker, to accuse Leon of manipulation, to demand the truth, but he knew none of it would change anything. The machine had already swallowed him. 3 months later, a national investigative journalist released a report that shook the entire system. The story exposed a bribery ring inside Red Ridge. Senior officers had been working with high-profile inmates to move contraband, influence court outcomes, and manipulate staff assignments. One of the names at the center of the scandal was Chief Officer Walker. Bank transfers, off-record meetings, contraband shipments disguised as official deliveries. The story exploded, and buried in the report was a short, almost forgotten line. One officer attempted to report a bribe and was discreetly removed from duty. The name was not mentioned, but Daniel knew exactly who it was. The $50,000 had never been about him. It had been a test to see if he was part of the network. When he failed the test, the network removed him. And Leon? He got transferred to another facility. Rumor said he was protected for cooperating with the circle of officers who controlled the trade. Daniel watched the news from his small apartment, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. The truth was finally out, just not in time to save him. One bribe, one moment, one decision to follow the rules. That was all it took to unravel Daniel's life. He was never the villain of the story, but in a place like Red Ridge, the truth had to fight its way through concrete walls and hidden loyalties. And the lesson was clear. Corruption does not always begin with greed. Sometimes it begins with a man trying to do the right thing in the wrong place. What would you have done in his situation? Tell me in the comments, and make sure you subscribe to Add a File so you never miss the real stories behind the headlines.